This is the complete story of American seaplanes of World War II, aircraft built to dominate distance rather than dogfights. From slow-moving flying boats that crossed entire oceans to compact floatplanes launched from battleships, these machines formed the backbone of Allied maritime aviation. They searched for submarines, rescued thousands of downed airmen, guided fleets across featureless seas, and kept supply lines alive when no runways existed. Unlike Germany or Japan, the United States combined industrial scale with practical design. American seaplanes emphasized reliability, range, and crew survivability over elegance or speed. Some became legendary lifesavers. Others quietly flew tens of thousands of patrol hours without recognition. This is a factual breakdown of the most important U.S. seaplanes of World War II. How they were built, how they were used, and why they mattered. Let's begin. Consolidated PBY Catalina. The PBY Catalina became the most important Allied seaplane of the war. Designed for extreme range and endurance, it could remain airborne for over 15 hours, making it ideal for maritime patrol and search and rescue. The Catalina was slow and lightly armored, but its ability to locate enemy fleets, shadow convoys, and rescue air crews made it indispensable. It played critical roles in the Battle of the Atlantic and throughout the Pacific. More lives were saved by the Catalina than by any other aircraft type of the war. PBM Mariner. The PBM Mariner was a larger, more heavily successor to the Catalina. It featured greater speed, improved defensive armament, and increased payload capacity. Designed primarily for anti-submarine warfare, it carried depth charges, radar, and magnetic anomaly detectors. While less famous than the Catalina, the Mariner flew extensive patrols over the Atlantic and Pacific, contributing significantly to convoy protection and submarine suppression. Its robust design made it effective in rough sea conditions. Consolidated PB2Y Coronado. The PB2Y Coronado was the U.S. Navy's attempt at a heavy flying boat capable of both patrol and transport roles. It was faster and more spacious than earlier designs, but suffered from complex maintenance requirements and high operating costs. While it saw combat patrol service early in the war, the Coronado was increasingly used as a long-range transport aircraft, especially across the Pacific. Its size reflected America's logistical priorities rather than tactical combat needs. Vought OS-2U Kingfisher. The OS-2U Kingfisher was the standard U.S. Navy shipboard floatplane during the early war years. Launched by catapult from battleships and cruisers, it served primarily as an artillery spotter and reconnaissance aircraft. Though slow and lightly armed, it proved highly effective in rescuing downed pilots near combat zones. The Kingfisher was simple, reliable, and well-suited to naval operations, remaining in frontline service until replaced by more advanced aircraft. Curtiss SOC Seagull. The Curtiss SOC Seagull represented an earlier generation of U.S. naval floatplanes. Entering service in the late 1930s, it was already obsolete by the time the United States entered the war. Nevertheless, it served in scouting, gunnery spotting, and training roles during the early conflict period. Its gradual replacement illustrates the rapid pace of wartime aviation development once the U.S. fully mobilized its industry. Grumman J2F Duck. The Grumman J2F Duck was an amphibious aircraft capable of landing on both land and water. Its rugged construction and short takeoff ability made it ideal for rescue, transport, and liaison duties. Although not a frontline combat aircraft, the Duck was highly valued for recovering air crews and operating from remote locations. It served throughout the war across multiple branches of the U.S. military. Sikorsky VS-44. The VS-44 was a limited production, long-range flying boat designed for transoceanic operations. Although only a few were built, it demonstrated advanced hull design and long-range efficiency. Wartime service focused on transport and evaluation rather than combat operations. The VS-44 highlights how the U.S. explored multiple flying boat concepts before committing fully to mass production designs like the Catalina and Mariner. Martin JRM Mars. The Martin JRM Mars was the largest flying boat operated by the United States during World War II. Designed initially as a long-range patrol aircraft, it was primarily used as a heavy transport due to its enormous payload capacity. The Mars could carry troops, vehicles, or supplies across vast Pacific distances where no runways existed. Its size limited combat use, but its logistical value was unmatched. The aircraft demonstrated America's ability to engineer flying boats on an unprecedented scale. Consolidated PBY-5A Amphibious variant. The PBY-5A introduced amphibious capability to the Catalina design by adding retractable landing gear. This allowed operations from both water bases and conventional airfields, increasing flexibility dramatically. While performance remained similar to earlier Catalinas, the ability to land on runways simplified maintenance and logistics. The amphibious version was widely used in rescue missions, maritime patrol, and transport duties throughout the Pacific theater. Brewster SBA SBD Buccaneer Float variant. Originally designed as a dive bomber, the Brewster SBA was adapted into a floatplane configuration for naval use. However, performance limitations and handling issues made it unsuitable for frontline operations. The float-equipped variant remained primarily experimental and training-focused. Its limited success reflected the difficulty of converting land-based combat aircraft into effective floatplanes without significant redesign. Douglas R. Dolphin. The Douglas Dolphin was an amphibious aircraft used primarily for transport, liaison, and medical evacuation. Though originally a civilian and utility design, it was pressed into wartime service due to its versatility. Its limited speed and payload prevented frontline combat use, but it proved reliable for coastal operations, especially in support roles. The Dolphin exemplified how the U.S. military repurposed existing designs during rapid wartime expansion. Navy N3N Yellow Peril. The N3N was primarily a trainer aircraft, but float-equipped versions were used to prepare naval pilots for water operations. Built largely from aluminum to conserve strategic materials, it became one of the longest-serving naval trainers. While never intended for combat, its role was critical in producing qualified pilots for the Navy's expanding seaplane and carrier forces. Fairchild J2K, J2K1. The Fairchild J2K was a light amphibious aircraft evaluated by the U.S. Navy for utility and patrol roles. It featured both wheels and a boat hull, allowing flexible operations. However, limited performance and payload capacity restricted its usefulness. The aircraft saw only small-scale service and evaluation, highlighting the Navy's experimentation with compact amphibious designs during the pre-war and early war years. Grumman J2F Goose. The Grumman Goose was a civilian amphibious aircraft adapted for military transport, patrol, and rescue missions. Its robust construction and amphibious capability made it ideal for operations in island chains and coastal regions. Though not designed for combat, it served extensively in utility roles across the Pacific. The Goose became one of the most recognizable amphibious aircraft of the era. Consolidated XPB-3Y, XPB2Y Experimental Series. The XPB series represented America's experimentation with large flying boat concepts before standardization. These prototypes tested hull shapes, engine arrangements, and defensive layouts that influenced later operational aircraft. While never mass-produced, the XPB projects were crucial in refining U.S. flying boat design philosophy. They demonstrate how experimentation fed directly into successful production models like the Catalina and Mariner.